Hi, everyone. How are you doing? I hope you're having a fabulous Wednesday. It's like that mid part of the week where you're still kind of hopeful that you can conquer everything you need to for your week because you have so many days left, right? Or maybe that's just me. Hey, Rosalia. Hi, Jess. So the link to download the slides it should be underneath me. If you are watching this on YouTube, assuming the multi-streaming worked correctly, then you can come over to Crowdcast and get the link over there. So let me just say today's going to be quick. So even though this looks like a really thick book, 40% or almost 50% of the book is case studies, which I'll talk about that in a minute. But the rest of it was more instructional. And even then it was a little, I'm not sure when this was printed, but it's a little outdated in terms of some of the information. So I did skip over that, just like in the last webinar, just because I don't think it applies anymore. Yeah, this was copyrighted 2013, which means it was probably written in 2011 or 2012. So basically before self-publishing was a little bit more widespread, even though people were still doing it. I don't know, there was still some stigma back then or something. So anyways, let's get going. Rosalia, can I download later in my car? Yeah, for sure. I will, just like last week, I just left it up forever and ever and ever. So I am going to go ahead and check YouTube really quick just to see if that's working. Yes, it is working. It's a small miracle. So if you're watching on YouTube, just know that there's a small delay from when you are watching on YouTube to what I'm actually saying live on Crowdcast. So if you have a question, I won't see it right away. All right, I'm going to share my slides with you. Hi, Lisa. So excited for today's webinar. Awesome. So I really hope this helps. Let me know too. How many of you guys are doing NaNoWriMo? Anybody? I should have put a poll up, but Rosalia, yes. Yeah, I mean, I try to write all the time, but it's just fun when it's just like the reason I go to the gym instead of working out downstairs in my living room. I like being around other people and like all of the energy and everything else going around just kind of keeps you, motivated and inspired. Jess, I'm doing Nana my first time. Nadia, yes. Awesome. Cool. Hannah, I'm still undecided. If I do, I'll be rewriting my draft from last year's Nano. You can totally do that too. It's just a matter of, I think, just being writerly related productive during that month. And just so you know, just like last time, I have nothing to sell you. This is just a no pitch webinar. I just like doing these live instead of, I used to on my old channel on Lisa London, I used to pre-record these, but it was kind of lonely. So that's why I'm doing it live. So I am going to share my screen with you. So hopefully, all right, hopefully you should be able to see my slides right now, but you have those as well. And don't worry, I have the winners for the giveaway that I'm doing. So if you entered that, I will announce those at the end. So don't anybody let me forget to do that because sometimes I have been known to do that. So I'm going to put it up here so it's right in front of my face so I don't forget. All right, so here are all of the slides. So there's not a lot. So last time I think I had almost 50. This time around, I think there's just about 30, a little bit shy of like 33 slides. So we're going to, just like we always start out every time, who is Karen Wiesner? We're going to go through chapter summaries, and then we are going to go over what's in these appendix items, and then how am I using this book? And just a note here, I just wanted to mention the thing when this author in particular has written a ton of books, but she mostly, and I think because of just the time that it was written, did small press. So she frequently talks about small press. She frequently quotes some small presses that are obviously out of business because small press, as you know, what's the point? In my opinion, you might as well just self-publish on your own. It doesn't make sense to do only with the small press print if you're not going to get like a bigger deal from, Harlequin or Random House or something like that. So I think that's kind of how most people think. So that's why she has a lot of advice that's really great for small press. But again, just my personal opinion is that small press is a waste of time to apply to. You're better off just going with you're just doing it on your own. So, or applying to be traditionally published. So, who is Karen? And I don't know if I'm guessing I'm saying it right, Wiesner, because my name is Seifert, S-I-E. So in German, you always, if it's an I and an E together, or EI, you always pronounce the letter, the second letter. So Wiesner, but if it was Wiesner, it would have been EI. Just a little German language lesson. So she's written a ton of books. So in case you're wondering, she is a very prolific author, very experienced. She's written Christian and Christian mystery. She's written romantic suspense. She's written contemporary romance. She's written sci-fi romance. She's written paranormal romance, and who knows what else. She just sounds like she is interested in a lot of different things, and as a result has written a lot of different books. So you don't have to worry about her not being experienced as an author. Also, I think her only traditionally published books are the ones that she does through Writer's Digest. So she has a few books. I actually have those other two, the First Draft in 30 Days and From First Draft to Finished Novel. I don't have Bring Your Fiction to Life. I've never actually heard of that one. And I'm not sure. This is, I think, a fiction planner. I don't even think that's in print anymore. It's an older one. All right, so let's just get into the chapters. So the first chapter was series catalyst, definitions, and types. And so she was saying there's 3 different ways that you as an author, so basically she's not really talking about how to start your series. She's just saying, why would you as an author have decided to write a series? And she's saying it could have just happened on accident, where you meant to write a standalone, but then people liked it, or something you had another story in your head, and so you wrote a second story. Or you could have been more intentional and planned it out from the beginning. Or the third way is because the publisher asked you to turn it into a series. Series definitions. So this actually was really useful. A lot of the terminology that she wrote definitions for. So she was trying to say that she thinks the way that this terminology is used in TVs, like episodic TV shows, or for movies, is not the same as literature. I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like they're kind of melting into one. But she said a book series is something that's ongoing and continuous. So it could be sequential, or it could be interconnected. So if you saw, I have a video on the Lisa London channel on types of different series, right? So you could have something that is like Twilight or Harry Potter, where everything happens in order. And if you watch it out of order, you're kind of lost. Or it could be just interconnected, where it's just Jill Shalvis does a really good job with this, with the Lucky Harbor series, which is actually my favorite series. And she has different couples in totally different characters. It just happens to take place in the same location. So that's just one sort of connecting theme throughout the whole series. You can have an ongoing book series. So she's saying anything, I think, because she's defining it differently. She never really talks about this, but if you have 2 books, obviously it's called a duology. 3 books is a trilogy. So she really doesn't consider those a series or an ongoing series. So to be ongoing, she said it needs 4 or more, and it can go up to millions. Next is serial. So serials are not usually standalone books. They're usually just chapters or parts of a book that are released sequentially. And I believe I talked about this too. It's like an old style thing that people used to do back when paper books or pulp fiction was out. And it was really popular. I think about the time that this was written, people would release chapters on Amazon for like 99. The first one's free, second one's 99 cents, and then $1.99 or whatever. But those have kind of gone out of style. And now the only people who are really doing that is the apps like Radish, Hooked, who else? Things that kind of just deliver the story in pieces, and then you pay with like coins that you purchase, just like a arcade machine, to actually read the other chapters as they come out. Miniseries is a finite number of stories told within an existing series. So it was kind of interesting. The example she used was actually from her own series, and I honestly have never read any of her fiction books. But her example was that within a series, she had gone off on a segue and written a mini series within her larger book series. And that's kind of how she used the example for a mini series, which I've actually never heard of. Usually I would think of that as a spinoff, but she does use that term later, so we'll get to that. Prequel, obviously something that comes before, and sequel is something that comes after. Interquel is something that happens in between. So you'll see people release novellas, like it'll be, so if your book sequentially is book 1, 2, 3, 4, if they release an interquel, they'll call it book 2.5 or something cute like that. And it'll say, you know, a book between the books or something. And it'll be maybe a holiday special, like Valentine's Day or Christmas usually has like a special time of year theme in general, not always. Midquill, parallel, sidquill, I think that was sidequill, I'll double sidquill, and quartet are companion pieces. She mentioned those words, but she didn't actually define them. So I'm not too worried about it, probably because I'm guessing they're just not that popular. No one's like, hey, did you read that quartet? Never heard anyone say that. So probably we can just ignore that part. Trilogy, tetralogy, I don't know if I'm saying that right. That's 3 and 4, obviously just math words. And then spin-off. So spin-off, that's what I usually think of, I guess, when she was talking about her miniseries thing. But I guess maybe the difference is her miniseries happened in between for the timeline. I'm not really sure. But spin-off is where you just take maybe one aspect or a character and then they get their own show. So like, my famous example I always say for spinoffs is the Buffy the Vampire series had a spinoff where they created Angel. They wanted to create a series for Faith, and I was very sad that they never did that. But anyways, so those are all the definitions. Maybe when you're talking series talk with other authors, that could help you to make sure you're saying the right lingo. So here's her guidance on how to tie a series together. You can have obviously recurring characters, a central group of core characters, shared themes, objects, or a timeline, and the setting. So a series could have one or many of these different items. So moving on to chapter 2. Ryan, joining late. Hey, Ryan. Hannah, I'm writing tetralogy. Yeah, it's hard to say. You know what's funny? It's that I've been saying it wrong. I always call it a trilogy, and then I call it a quadrology. I can't say either one of them correctly. I usually, who knows what I say, but I think I usually use the word quad for 4 instead of tetra, because it makes me think of the game Tetris. Anyways, chapter 2, finding the focus of a series. So there's 2 different arcs. So one is a story arc and one is a series arc. And I think she did a good job of trying to put definitions in here. So if you notice, like the small little type inside of these slides is her definitions that I've either copied or just kind of reworded into a way that made more sense to me. But story arcs is just a storyline. And then series arc is one that started, started in the first book and then continued throughout. So the thing that's unique about the series arc, and we'll get to that on the second page, is that sometimes they're just open-ended and they are never solved. It's kind of like if you ever watch that TV show Monk with his the murder of his wife, and he was never able to solve that until the very last 2 episodes of the entire series. And so that is usually a series arc. And so she did say too, sometimes you just never have to solve them ever. I think it varies, you know, if you have an open-ended one, like let's say the Janet Ivanovich, Stephanie Plum series, will she marry Morelli? Will she not? It's something that never gets answered and probably never will. So anyway, so she was going through the story arc steps. So don't get confused by these, or even, I would say, don't even look at these. This is basically how she plots. So she was saying, you know, you could use the hero's journey, you could use the snowflake method, you could use whatever models are there. Those things that I'm not a fan of, the save the cat, you could use emotional beats, right? So this is just her sort of suggestion for how to plot it out. You introduce a character in their everyday life. Sounds very familiar, right, to the hero's journey and everything else. And then there's a change, right? So something happens to disrupt their everyday life. They can't at any point go back. Like, it has to be impossible. Otherwise, they would just stay in their regular life. And then conflicts come along the way. Basically, just the story progresses. And then they have to make a choice. And finally, there's the crisis, which obviously, to me, is the black moment, and then the resolution of the story. Now, different types of series arcs, and I'll be honest, I don't know that I really like these definitions. They didn't really resonate with me. I understand the concept of a series arc, but basically she's saying there's three. There's a clearly defined story arc, which she thinks is more common to the genres of sci-fi, thrillers, and actions. Again, that kind of reminds me of movies. And then she has said that there's loosely defined ones, which are, again, open-ended. They may never be resolved, like the romance with Stephanie and Morelli. And then they have plant arcs. And so plant arcs are really just you drop a clue. It's kind of like a mystery. You drop something that you don't think is going to be important, but then later on it becomes very central to a, I guess, series arc plot, or to a point later. Like maybe your hero has a one-night stand and not a big deal. And then, I don't even know, maybe as your series progresses, 12 years later or 18 years later, someone shows up on his doorstep and is like, I'm your daughter. I don't know. That's what I think of when I think of these plant arcs. Cliffhangers. So she does say that you could end your book, you could write your book so that is a cliffhanger and or a standalone. So she was very much, and I actually disagreed with this, that you should always have your book standalone. There should never be any cliffhangers. The only unanswered questions at the end of your book are things that are series arc questions, right? Because it's a series, and obviously those will get answered maybe at some point as the series progresses, the last one, or maybe never. So the thing is, and again, I think this is because this was small press versus indie publishing, was her biggest fear was the publisher could go out of business or decide not to print books anymore. Or even, I guess, as an indie, your sales don't do that well. And so you decide not to write a follow-up. So in that case, you should just make your book standalone. So it should not have a cliffhanger. Otherwise, people are sad and upset because they never found out what happened to the person, however you left them at the end of the book. So I actually disagree, because I know that for writing series without a cliffhanger, I have not sold as many for the second book versus when I did leave a huge cliffhanger at the end of the book. Now, there are obviously people that will wait until all the books are out, especially if there's a cliffhanger, but I always put in the description, this book ends with a cliffhanger. So people know, so they're not too upset, because cliffhangers do kind of leave you wondering. However, they do help sales. If you ask any other romance indie author, they will tell you ending with a cliffhanger is the way to guarantee that people are like excited about the second book. But moving on, genre hopping and mixing. So she kind of contradicts herself. So a lot of the authors, she does get commentary, which was helpful from other authors in this book. And they said to stay within your same genre, right? Like if I'm going to read a sci-fi book and then all of a sudden you're going to change it to like a Christian faith-based mystery, I'm probably going to be a little annoyed, right? But she did say to stay in the same genre. So did all the other authors. But she said that in her mind, she had changed from contemporary to a paranormal, but it was okay because it made logical sense to her. So I don't know. I guess if you know your audience very well and they would be okay with that, then maybe that's all right. And then multi-genre is great. So this is also the advice that Jonathan Mayberry always gives. He does genre mashups, but keep in mind, he mostly targets young adult audiences. So I feel like that's a different type of audience than maybe say contemporary romance or something else. So chapter 3. So these are short chapters. The 2 crucial C's for your series, which are kind of like Captain Obvious things to me, characters and consistency. So the number one reason that she says people read books is for characters. She's I think, right. And she was saying, it was kind of funny. I did agree with her. She was saying that, she finds it crazy when people say they write plot-driven books versus character-driven books because characters are what sell. But instead, what she's saying is you need to do, and again, this kind of was like Captain Obvious advice to me. She said you need to make sure that your plot, your character, and your setting all go together. So I guess just a good reminder, or maybe it's just a reminder that, there's so many different things to focus on: the scenes, sequel, conflict, weather. I don't even know what else could there be. And so maybe if you can just focus on those three things, the plot, the character, and the setting, then you're in good shape. So she did say to give your character a passionate hot button item, like maybe they hate cruelty to animals, they're pro-life, they don't like child abuse, and then that sets them up for conflicts in the future. And then they did go into a little segue on how to convey previous info, because if you have a series, it's always the issue, right? Like if someone jumps into book 2, even if they had read book 1, they forgot. So you'll see on TV shows, they'll always do, I shouldn't say always, they'll frequently do on the last episode or previously, and then they'll do a short little recap. So she's saying the same thing. You could do a short synopsis. You could add a prologue. You could actually put in, so for her book, she said she had a really complicated one where there was like a secret underground syndicate guide. So she put an entire reference guide in there, which had all of the key players, who they were, what their roles were, what they did, history about this underground syndicate group. And I think it was more of a spy novel, or at least a thriller. At least it sounded like that. So maybe for that format, that's a good idea. And she said you could just do a summary narration where someone actually just literally summarizes it like a narrator in the beginning. So you'll see the Stephanie Plum books, or some of a lot of cozy mysteries do that, where they will talk in second person to the reader. Hi, I'm Lisa, and I am crazy about chocolate and ice cream, and I'm always making cupcakes, or, whatever. And I recently stumbled upon a dead body, but I saw, so that is also another way to do it. But everyone was basically like, be very brief. Don't make a whole chapter of backstory. And then make sure to bring something new into each book that you write. Okay, so she actually has later on, and I'll show you this, a consistency checklist for your series. And these are the 5 areas. They're worded a little weird. So oversights, to me, I don't know if that's a consistency thing. It's just bad story writing. So Deus Ex Machina was her example, which if you've never heard that, that means the ghost in the machine. That's that horrible ending. I don't know if anyone saw, it was called Awake. It was a TV show, and the guy had been in a car accident. And in one reality, his wife had died in the car accident. And in the other reality, his son had died in the car accident. They were both in the car with him. And he was just going in between the 2 realities based on like if he went to sleep or he took a nap or something. And so at the end of the season, you were like, what is going on? Is he special? Is he like in a alternate universe each time? And the answer was he woke up and it was all just a dream, and there really was no car accident at all. Terrible, right? So I don't know if that has anything to do with the series. I think it's just, again, just bad writing. Don't change the premise of the book. So if you, I think this has to do with genre, right? If you are writing a mystery, don't suddenly change it to a romance. Or if you are writing a romance with happily ever afters, don't suddenly change and make one of your books just everybody dies at the end, like that movie, A Star is Born, right? Third, use technology logically. So if you are going to use, I honestly feel like this probably applies more to historical books more than modern. Like if you have an era where there's no electricity, don't suddenly add electricity in later on. Ensure timelines make sense. So don't give somebody 2 birthdays in the same year. And quite honestly, usually in series, it's hard to tell what time of year it is, unless it's like Twilight, where each year is like a different year of school, or in the Harry Potter books where they kind of progress. So that was her example. And then production issues, close all story arcs and series arcs unless intentionally left open-ended. So she's saying those are okay to never answer. Again, I think it really depends on your series. If you have a closed series, you probably want to answer all of the series questions at the end. All right, so reader advice. So this was kind of, I feel like, not useful. I always find reader advice as you should obviously take all advice with like a grain of sand, but reader advice is like all over the place, right? So she put some in here. I just put some quotes of what readers hated. I think probably don't kill off the main character. Obviously, I feel like that, how would you even have a series then? But I did find this very useful. So if you were not going to read anything at all from this book and you were like, I just want the notes, maybe I will skim the book. The only thing, I shouldn't say the only thing, the thing that I think was most valuable for your time would be chapter 3. There is a section and it's just a few pages, I think like 5 pages on author advice on writing series. So this is advice from other authors, actually nobody I've actually heard of. And I'm not saying they're bad authors. There's no like Stephen King's or anything. There's just authors that write series and they're giving their feedback to you on how they plot and what their advice is when you put your series together. But overall, in general, they had really good ideas. So like create a series premise wide enough to leave room for, and I have another typo, new themes, stories, and characters. So don't kind of write yourself into a hole and make it a little too niche. And then always give your character a new challenge, make each book different. We already talked about that. And then also, I think this was good. Give your character an occupation that you're passionate about learning about or researching. And then put crime, this is different. So I'm writing cozies, which are in this small town, but it did say if you're writing crime novels, put them in a town where exciting crime and things are always happening, right? So basically saying what Karen was saying, make the setting part of your story. And then you don't have to put every character from every series into every book. You'll overwhelm the reader, first of all, with too many characters. And honestly, it could be a little confusing. So don't worry about trying to get it's not like Friends where everybody has to be in every single episode. All right, chapter 4, how to organize your series. So this section, again, was a little outdated, so I'm going to go over it really quickly. This is the Sam Hain process, and a couple people mentioned that they put things for their series onto a floppy disk, so I'm not sure when she had gotten this advice, but, oh God, I have another typo. I should really spell check these, although pot wouldn't have come up as a spell check. Anyways, so she has I think this is a 5-step process. Blurb the series. She already talked about this in that first chapter. Have recurring characters, central characters, core group of characters in your setting. The individual series, she's kind of given you like a Mad Libs exactly what to write out. This is basically to me like the premise of your series. And then she said to create a series Bible, which is great advice. So the other authors in here, actually her advice wasn't useful. She just said, you should just do what works for you. But the other authors in here said that one said they create an index card for every single character and put their description and traits on there. Another person uses a whiteboard they can erase for each book. Another person creates a family tree. Somebody else has a character list with demographic data, maps, and calendars. So I don't know that I really need maps for my contemporary stories, but for sure what's always helped me is having the character demographics, locations, experiences, everything written down into, I wouldn't say like a series Bible. I really have a character Bible, because when I went to write the next book in the series, I was like, did I make him blonde or does he have blue eyes? I can't remember. Is he tall? Is he short? Where did he go to school? Like all of those things I couldn't remember. So, for mine, I basically almost create like a demographic police report for each of those characters, because to me, that's more important than, what's going on in the series. I mean, you should know that too, but for sure the characters, easy to get those confused. And then this is all of those arcs that we talked about, the series, the story, and the plant arc. And then the 5th is the fact checking. So just make a list. And so now when she says fact checking, she's really just talking about that list that we had earlier, which is right here, consistency. That's her fact checking, which again was more like a story check to me than a fact checking. All right, chapter 5, series marketing. branding. So I think we've all heard this. There's a really good video series from J.A. Huss. If you go onto her website, it's free, and she has, and it's a little older, and it's obviously tailored towards romance, but she does all of her own graphic design. I believe she does all of her own covers, and she does a nice job of explaining how, you know, branding everything to the same colors, the same look and feel, and having this, I think she has like a heart that has like a geometric pattern or something. Don't quote me on that, but she has like a branding for each of her series. And this is the same thing that this book is saying, is to make sure that they all sort of go together. Now, I do disagree. The author's example of her branding is she has a tagline. The author's tagline for her fiction stories is she creates realistic, unforgettable characters one story at a time. To me, that's really generic. I mean, obviously, who doesn't want a story with realistic, unforgettable characters? I think a better tagline is something that is, I create, you know, sleuths that are super clever and a mix between James Bond and I don't even know, and MacGyver or something. So that would help give a little bit more of a niche and really, I guess, differentiate you from the market. That branding title to me is so generic. It doesn't, you're not even sure what you're getting. But you should have some sort of an implied promise to the reader. And I feel like a little bit more of a targeted tagline could do that. She has a couple rules for marketing. Never mention a book without, you know, saying this is part of the series, right? Like in the title, it should say book 1 of, and then you should have the series name. And then use the series blurb as much as possible, just as much as you would the book blurb, and give each series a logo. And this was, again, I think this is a little outdated. They said you should at least try to release books once a year. And it was kind of funny because in the, I believe it's in the reader feedback, I think, someone, or the author feedback, maybe I didn't write it, somewhere in this book, it said that you could wait years. Like, it had an example where someone waited 15 years until the next book came out. And they were saying that doesn't matter, because if your book is really great, people will wait. And I think that was true maybe before, but now that we have like this age of, you know, instant gratification, you can go to Netflix and watch the entire series in one day. I don't think people want to wait 15 years for book 2 or book 3 to come out. And furthermore, I don't even think 1 year is like a good timing. Most people are talking about rapid release, and that's how people are making more money. There is talk about burnout as well, but you could always, you know, write those books over the course of who knows how long, and then rapid release them versus rapid writing them, if that makes sense. So again, just my 2 cents. Chapter 6, preparing for the conclusion of a series. So she, again, this is a little outdated, but she's saying that a publisher could go out of business. I mean, I guess that's true really of any publisher. But I think that was more so prevalent with small press publishers, just randomly going out of business and disappearing, declining sales. So basically she's saying, again, it's just like the beginning where we talked about in chapter 1, where is it? Like a series catalyst. When I picked up this book and it said chapter 1 series catalyst, I thought it would help give me information for like how to create an inciting incident to like spark a series. But she's really just talking about why you as the author would have created the series. And here again in chapter 6, in chapter 6, she's talking about why it would have ended. And that's just because you as the author have declining sales, or your publisher went out of business, or you as the author, nothing to do with plotting or the book or craft. She's just saying you could say to people, if you want to leave it open-ended, but you don't want to work on that series anymore, you could say, you know, I love this series, but I'm going to move on to other projects, but I'm not saying I'm closing the door to this series. So, you know, this was just more advice for you as an author. All right, so worksheets. So worksheets are like, it's 32 pages. It looks like Microsoft Word, and it basically goes through these different areas: the series, the story blurb development, the series breakdown, the series Bible info, character setting, premise, plot, and a fact checker checklist, which again, that fact checker checklist was just the information that was in consistency over here, these 5. So I will show you, hold on. Oops.
I'm on it.
Siri thinks I'm talking to her. Okay. Let me share with you. Okay, so if you go to writersdigest.com, fiction series, over here, they have the worksheet downloads. And when you go here, you are going to see this 32-page workbook, which again, I think nothing wrong with that. She just wrote it in Word. It repeats a lot of the things that were in the book. It has the series breakdown over here, then series Bible info, which I recapped for you, character sketch sheets, character dialogue sheets, settings sheet. So again, just small reminders of what she thinks you should think of with a bunch of lines. Worksheet number 5 is the premise plot specifics, a plot sketch. And again, this was her sort of, remember, introduction, something, the inciting incident, conflicts, black moment, resolution. And then over here we have the plot sketch just continues. And over here, we have another plot sketch. I guess this says more in depth, 5C. Major story goal, characters are outfitted for their task. Characters react with disappointment, stakes of the conflict are raised. So kind of walking you through, it looks like the hero's journey. And then finally the end, which is the resolution, the showdown, the goals achieved. And then we jump in over here to series Bible information, so miscellaneous information. And then over here, I think I forgot to mention this. This is miscellaneous research. So the page or chapter, the character, the location, and the fact. I'm actually not sure how you would use this because that could be like the book itself. That could take forever. And then over here, miscellaneous timeline. Crime timeline if you're writing a thriller or mystery. Motives and alibis, again, great if you're writing a thriller or mystery. And then this was the series, the story, and the plant arc breakdown. Again, so I think what this is book 1 in the name of the series. So I guess you would make one of these for each of the books and how much you progressed each of those arcs along. Obviously, the individual story arc would be finished with inside that one book. Has book 2 over here and book 3. So same thing, kind of a rinse and repeat, book 4. And then finally, we get to that fact checker thing, the oversights, change premise, technical problems, timeline, unanswered questions. So, I'm a little over. So I'm over on time. I'm almost finished though. So let me go back to our slides. Okay, so we just talked about all of the worksheets that you get and then case studies. So 40% of the book said case studies, but honestly, in my opinion, they didn't seem like case studies. They were just recaps of different books that are series. So I guess they are helpful if you are thinking about like what book to write, but I would say almost all of this is Harry Potter. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, like almost all, and you can see this is all Harry Potter stuff. So she goes through each book and just kind of recaps it. I didn't find a lot of value in it, but I think if you had never read those or read any of the Harry Potter books or saw any of the movies, you might find that useful. So next question, how am I using this book? So again, I think like when I get stuck on things while I'm plotting or thinking about the series, I do go back and I go to chapter 3 where it has some of the author advice and some of their ideas. And it just gave me a couple ideas to think about on what else I want to include in my series Bible. So I will be sharing my series Bible starter kit probably later on during NaNoWriMo, during one of my vlogs. But that's kind of where I'm at. And that's it. Now I have taken other classes on Savvy Authors, on writers.com, on online, right? Who knows where? Like I'm always taking like a million classes on different ways to create a series Bible. So some of them are useful, some of them aren't. I think it's really hard because there's so many things you could include and so many things you could not include and could be useful or not useful. It's really hard to tell. I mean, it's a lot of work to create the series Bible. And I know when I wrote like the subsequent books in a series, I didn't really need all of that information. So sometimes I think people go a little overboard with series Bibles, in my opinion, to the point where you're making all of this series Bible information that looks pretty and is fun to show in a video, but probably isn't that useful when it comes to actually needing to write the second or third book. So to me, that's like wasted time that you could have just been plotting and working on the next book. So those are my thoughts. Anyways, let me know. I hope you guys found this useful. Oh, I see. Hold on. I have some YouTube questions. Should I be on Crowdcast? It's easier for me to be on YouTube. Hey, Dawn, you can totally be on YouTube. You don't have to be on Crowdcast, but if you want the slides, they are on Crowdcast. Charisse, always wanted to write a book, but never knew where to start. Dawn, 15 years between series. Whoa, she sounds like the Sade of authors. Yeah. So 15 years, like, how to create a story to be interesting. Brandy, this is so perfect. Just what I need for nano planning. Thank you for another great video. You're welcome. Rose, the series I'm working on introduces characters in earlier books that star in later books. I have a series Bible to keep track of details for later references. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And again, like I was saying, I really think the characters are like the most important part to keep. I don't know, I mean, maybe because I write them back to, I don't really get confused too much on the next book. But if you wait too long, 15 years, maybe you definitely need to put all those details down. I mean, in theory, you should probably just read your book again. But I know, and I know this sounds bad, but like when I went to write the second book, I just didn't want to read the first book again. I was like, I don't want to read it again. I'm done. I just want to move on. Lysandra, I use a 3-subject notebook as a series Bible. One section is for plotting and planning out scenes. The next is chapter files, and the third is for locations. That's a great idea. Yeah, I use a binder only because like, well, you know, with the notebooks, it's like such a travesty because you have this spiral notebook and maybe you need 100 pages for the first section, 20 for the next, 50 for the last. Like it's hard to tell. And then you have like these extra pages in different sections you may or may never use. So let me announce the winners. I don't know if anyone is here that was in the drawing, but so I have 6 books that are going out. Hold on, let me grab them so you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right. So I did a drawing. Actually, if you had entered, you have a really good chance of winning. Only like 200 people entered this drawing. So I'd gone to the influencer conference just this past weekend, which was amazing, by the way. So I'm going to do a recap on that. I think on Friday that video comes out. Anyways, it has a ton of cool stuff in here, but the most important thing is it has the brand new Brendan Bouchard high performance planner. It's still wrapped, shrink wrapped in plastic. I did a review on the other channel. That was really nice. It has his book. No, not his book. Yeah, it's his book. The Millionaire Messenger. And it also has this cool water bottle. And I threw this book in here. And you obviously get this tote. So I have 6 copies of this book. So I have, these books are going to, and I can only mention first names. I used to put emails because I just wanted everyone to know, like, this is real, but then I got so much hate mail because I was sharing email addresses. So this goes to Vonda, Ashley, Carissa, I don't know if I'm saying that, Eva, Olivia, and Mia. So congratulations, you all won a copy of this book. I will email you as soon as this video is over. And then for the grand prize of this influencer bag, it went to Jennifer. I don't know if I had any men in the contest, but it was mostly, when I skimmed through, it was mostly just women's names. But this goes to Jennifer. So super excited. Thank you so much for entering. And I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions? Rose, I didn't know about the drawing. Yeah, it was, I had sent an email. So if you're not on my mailing list, you maybe didn't see it or if you didn't open the email. And also, if you win, let me just say really important, because this happens a lot. I send an email and people don't send me their mailing address. I don't know if you're afraid I'm going to stalk you or something, but I need your mailing address to send you your prize. I don't know if I'm going into spam, but the email will come from lisa@lisalatte.com. So whitelist that if your name is any of those that I named: Vonda, Ashley, Carissa, Eva, Olivia, Mia, or Jennifer. So those will go out in the next 15 minutes. All right. Miss Dawn, congrats to the winners. Rose, I just used a journal, like a bullet journal, only lined, not dotted. That's good. I'm writing tautology. Hannah, yay, giveaway. This has been great. Thanks, Lisa. All right. I will see you guys on Friday with that recap of the influencer conference. And if you want, there's a video up today too. It's another video. It says a day in the life of a Bengal cat. So I got like 4 minutes of cat footage, and then the rest is 10 ways to put cats into your cozy mystery. So it is cozy mystery specific, but if you just like looking at cute cats, you might like the beginning of the video. All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. And I will see you next week. So if you want, I'm doing another webinar next week. So thank you to Ryan. He had suggested the book, Writing the Cozy Mystery by Nancy R. Cohen. So I will be summarizing that up same time this week on Wednesday at noon. All right. Bye. Oh, Jess, the video uploaded today was so cute. Thanks. All right.